Welcome to Dear Romance Writer, your home for the questionable advice for the bewildered and befuddled, random pop culture recommendations, and conversations about you feelings. Be sure to send in your letters seeking advice on our anonymous form at dearromancewriter.com.
Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network, a podcast community of everything romance and romance related. If you're into romance fiction of any flavor, the Frolic Podcast Network includes shows that feature book club style discussions, author interviews, comedy, critique, and fantastic conversations as well.
It includes some of the most innovative, interesting, and entertaining podcasts, including Kinda Dating, Crappy Friends, My Imaginary Friends, Smart Podcast Trashy Books, and Jeff and Will's Big Gay Fiction Podcast. What does this mean for you, the listener? More shows to enjoy and more opportunities for us to introduce you to great episodes and new podcasts you'll love. Find new shows to add to your podcast subscriptions at frolic.media/podcasts. Now on to this week's show.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today for our questionable advice. We love that you are here. We are here with the very fabulous Kelly Reynolds, who is with the Boobies and Noobies podcast, which, quite frankly, is one of my favorite titles.
I love that
ever.
name.
Anytime I can say boobies, it makes me laugh automatically because I have a sense of humor of a 12-year-old boy. So tell us about Boobies and Noobies, Kelly, and tell us about your journey into romance.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, once you start a podcast with the title Boobies and Noobies, you automatically start using the word boobies a lot more just in everyday conversation. So that's been a treat for all of my friends. But yeah, Boobies and Noobies, it's a romance novel review podcast. I also do author interviews occasionally, but the whole purpose is to introduce newbie romance readers to the genre that I fell in love with when I was 18-ish. So it's been
just a year ago.
Yeah, just last year. No. But it's crazy. I mean, I've loved the genre, since I picked up my first book. I was never really a reader before then. Like, I was not one of those people that read throughout my childhood. I think I was just waiting for the right book. And once I found romance, that was it. That was all I needed. And since then, it's just, I've been devouring the genre, one book after another. And now I get to inflict that upon my friends and my guests and hopefully convert them to be a lover of romance as well.
That's awesome.
So are you of the opinion that there is a romance for everyone out there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there is something for everybody, whether it's a specific kink or subtrope or whatever you're looking for. I really do think there is something for everybody, especially in 2021. I think we've still got a long way to go as far as diverse representation in romance, but we've made a lot of progress and we're seeing a lot more rep every month, every day. So I do think, like, if we continue along this path and we do, bring in new authors and new readers, it's an ever evolving genre. And that's what I love about it is if you read a book published this month, it's going to be nothing like a book published 10 years ago, but they still have their merits. I mean, they're still wonderful in their own way.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Yeah. We're
Brought
here.
to
We
you
obviously
by the
love
voice of romance.
So thank you for giving questionable advice with us. So we will just jump right in with our letter for this episode.
Our letter this episode.
Okay. Hit us, Zio.
Okay, so this is from Victoria. I always love that name. I'm a trans woman living in Pittsburgh and having issues with my transphobic mother. Her constant invalidation of my gender has been hurtful to both my partners and me. My prior partner, who identified strongly as a dyke, was not thrilled to have me constantly referred to with masculine pronouns as it erased both their sexuality and my gender. She also seems to be incapable of gendering my current partner correctly, insisting on using gender-neutral pronouns were totally inapplicable. I would love to hear your feedback on ways to constructively approach this issue, as it is an extremely sore subject. Love your show. Keep up the great work. Kisses, Victoria. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Ooh,
Can we start off with a group hug for Victoria? Because
Yeah.
quite frankly, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Big group hug for that, because this is heartbreaking,
Yeah.
quite frankly, because you want to think of your mom. Not everybody has that relationship with a mom who is supportive.
Yeah.
But you like to think, your mom's always got your back, even if while she's got your back, she's also nagging you about what you missed and telling you load the dishwasher wrong and all of that stuff. But at her core, she would be that person throwing the mountain lion across the yard for you, right? So that makes it really, really hard and heartbreaking. And I really wish there was a great answer, and maybe you guys have thought of one. But I wish there was a great answer that showed an option to say, well, if you just sit her down and say these magical words to your mom,
Right.
then your mom is going to have that eureka moment, and the clouds are going to part and everything's going to be okay. As a romance writer, there's nothing more in the world that I would love to do than to say, here's your 3-step plan. Go for it.
Yeah.
I also am a Virgo, so I love a 3-step plan.
I'm with you.
Yeah. But I don't know that there is one. I mean, this seems to be honestly a sit down with your mom where you've got to say, these are my boundaries. This is my thing. These are my limits. And if you cannot go there, I cannot be here with you.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's awful. I mean, my heart breaks for that. You guys, please say you have something better.
I wish, but it sounds mom sounds like she's being more than a little bit passive aggressive. Like it's like, okay, I'm going to meet you this far, but I'm not going to go any further, and I'm going to insist on doing these things that I know are hurtful to you. And that is disturbing. That's disturbing, because it's one thing to say, I don't accept who you are. It's another to pretend like you do, and then do these little things that are going to hurt your kid. Like
I think that's like step one, is kind of figuring out where mom's head is at, is in that, is she being purposely passive aggressive, or is she just really in a place of fear, not understanding? Because we all display those emotions differently. So I feel like if she really is just not grasping the concept, if she just does not understand when it comes to pronouns and misgendering somebody, one of my best friends is trans, and they come from a very Catholic upbringing. And so I know that this was an issue when they were coming out as trans, and it's just a constant coming out over and over and over again, that it's not a one sit down fits all kind of situation. So I wish it was. I'm with you, Avery. I wish it was as simple as that, but it's such a complex issue that, I, on the one hand, want to believe in the best in mom. I want to believe that mom is just scared and doesn't understand, and maybe wants to, but is hesitant on how to approach that. And so in that regards, it's a lot of work that we're asking Victoria and anybody else to put in for, to make somebody understand. But, if you want to keep that connection with mom, it might be worth the work. So I think it's just about also kind of figuring out, what is it that you want out of this relationship with mom as well.
That's a really
and I have so many questions still, because we had a little more information about what Victoria's relationship with her mom was like on other issues, because I do think that it would be really helpful to know what, like, is this the one part of their relationship that her mom is really fucking up, and like otherwise is pretty supportive, because that would, not that the supportiveness would balance it out, but that would make it really clear that, like, yeah, she's transphobic, because she loves you and is supportive of you in all these other ways, and yet, like, that same person refusing to do this thing, that sends a really clear picture. Or is this something that her mom is like pretty not great at in general, like not great at listening, not great at being respectful, etc. And I do think that knowing some of those things would help know the approach. One thing I'm not sure about is like how many chances.
Yeah, I was wondering that myself.
Yeah, because it sounds like from what Victoria is saying that this has been going on for a while, right? Like she's talking about a previous partner and herself and a current partner. So clearly this is not just like someone who has come out as trans like this year.
Yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
And so this is a mom who's like had time. You know, I feel like one of the things with like conversations about trans kids being more in the media is that there's this whole support system for parents that has sprung up that's like, and I say support system not as if like there's something wrong with being trans and you need help, but like system to support parents supporting children. Children or trans or gender nonconforming children. And part of that I've seen so much is parents kind of being like, this is really hard and it takes a lot of work and I need my kid to cut me some slack. And it's not that I'm not sympathetic to people needing to have slack cut. Everyone gets to feel that way. But to be honest, I'm pretty unsympathetic to parents who are saying that they need time to like say to their children the one thing that makes the difference between making them feel like a person and making them feel like a mistake.
How much time do you need to say I love you no matter what?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that one piece of this that I'm like struggling with is I don't want to say to Victoria, like, fuck your mom, because we don't quite have enough information maybe.
Right.
But I'm also like, there's a big difference between years of misgendering your child and not like everyone makes mistakes, but if you misgender your child and you made a mistake, then you say, I'm really sorry, sweetie, what I meant to say was, and then you gender them.
Right. That does not sound like what's happening here.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like what's happening here. And so there is this like 3-part plan, right? Like Virgo style plan where we can be like, okay, you just have to figure out like, what's your mom's key? How do we figure out what's the way to make her understand? And when we figure that out, then we can like fix it in this way. And that might be true, but like, it's actually not your job to figure out how your mom's brain works and then deliver to her the precise academic words to make her treat you like a person. And I think so many parents like don't understand the, like to many parents, I think they're thinking there are 100 like lines of my relationship with my kid and their transness is one of them. And so if I'm messing up on this one angle, I'm still succeeding in these 99 other angles. And to the trans kid of that parent, they know that you're doing great in 99 ways, but the one way that they really need you, you are 100% failing at.
Yeah.
And I think that math just feels really different on the parent side of the equation and on the kid side of the equation. Sorry, I've been talking for a really long time.
No, I was just thinking.
No, I think that's a great point.
It is. There was a conversation I was part of a panel a couple years ago, and it was with a trans man and his mom, and they were talking about a group that she was in, like other parents of trans kids. And she was saying there was a woman who was like, I needed time to mourn the loss of my daughter before I could accept my son. And everyone just kind of turned and looked like, what? You know, it was like, mourn? Like, what? I mean, that was such a... So I'm wondering if there's something like that going on here, where this parent feels wronged somehow because their kid is asserting who they are and is proud of who they are, and they're just kind of like, I don't accept that because it's not what I envisioned, or
you know what I mean?
That is?
That is such another like way that our society and its rigid gender standards historically
yeah
screw people over, because what I hear, and I could be hearing incorrectly, but what I hear when a parent were to say something like that is they are mourning the societal things that come with having a girl. So like the father-daughter dance, the wedding, or going and getting pedicures together, or, you know, whatever may be that gender specific, very strict activity. You know, it's sort of the same that comes with like the people that, and, you know, bless them, everybody has their thing, but will try and have kids forever so they can have the one gender they're missing.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, and that, you know, everybody has their thing. All right. I have 3 kids, so I'm not going to judge anybody with multiples, but that is, you know, that again is what it's about, is not the actual human. It is about the gender expectation that comes with that. And so that's what I hear when I get that.
Yeah, I totally.
But one thing that we haven't talked about that I wanted to bring up with this letter, and I think is a really universal thing, not that this rest of this has not been, but when Victoria talks about how her mom misgenders her, and that affects her partner, right? And I think that is something that is a passive aggressive mother-in-law specialty. No matter what the relationship, what the gender relationship is of the parties involved. And I think that as the partner whose mother that is, you have to pay special attention, because, you know, it's sort of one of those, what you choose to do with your mental health, with your body, with your, all of that stuff is you. But when you were bringing another person into it, and they love you, so they're trying to put up with a whole lot, but what you're doing is you're bringing somebody into a situation where you know they're going to be harmed, and you are not sticking up for them, that is bad. So, and Victoria doesn't say in the letter what her reaction is to this. If she like is like, Mom, we're leaving, you know, if you can't get this right, or even if the partner is not there at all and doesn't care. And I still think you need to stick up for your partner at that point in time. It doesn't matter if they hear or not. But yeah, so that's another level of this. I think.
Yeah, and I think that's such an interesting point, because I wonder, like, whether the mom is doing it passive aggressively on purpose. If so, that sucks. But I also think that that's like another dimension that a lot of parents, or a lot of like folks from older generations, might not understand, is implicit to misgendering their own child, is that like, if your child is a trans woman dating a woman who identifies as a lesbian, then misgendering them is completely negating and erasing the identity of that person.
Identity.
And I think that, again, like part of the discourse of this that I see from the parent side is like, they're thinking of it as their child, right? And like, they're like, the arrow is just so direct, but like, actually that your child is also someone's partner, someone's sibling, someone's best friend. And like, you're thinking about maintaining what to you is like your fantasy of that child that you had before they were born, or whatever, however that works. But but there are like real other people who are being harmed and negated and made to feel terrible by what you're doing as well. And so it's just like one more level of remove of damage. And I was thinking when you were talking, Avery, about the like the fantasy that parents can have that are just like totally based in sexist societal gender norms. I think that's so right on. And there's like a little bit of this that made me wonder, is the mom secretly feeling this kind of magical thinking, like, if I start gendering my daughter correctly, then it's like a done deal. There's real done deal. It's real. It's acknowledged. And so this is just like putting up this little bit, even maybe just for the moms, for herself, putting up this little bit of like, as long as I don't go along with it, I can still cling to the idea that it's not real or it's not happening.
That it's just a phase.
That's a good point. And I mean, honestly, I studied film in college, and one of the things we talk about when it comes to fears is that the scariest thing that you can be afraid of is the unknown. Like, but the minute you put a face to the monster or a name to whatever is going on, then you know what it is. You can conquer it, you can understand it. And so it feels like her mom is just very much trying to shy away from that, because the minute, like Roan said, you acknowledge it, then it's real. This is the reality we live with.
Well, naming something gives it power. So as long as she doesn't name it, then she feels like she has some last semblance of control. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm honestly wondering where Victoria's dad is in all of this. I don't know if it's a single mom or if there's a dad or a partner involved. Because that would also complicate things for me a little bit. Like, is her dad, if there's a dad in the picture, is her dad like doing worse? And so she's like clinging to a relationship with her mom because that is the more supportive parent, or like that would complicate things for me a little bit. Like to tell someone to cut off someone who's like the one parent who is supporting you. Or on the other hand, if there is a dad in the picture, if her dad is like really supportive, if I were married and had a kid with someone and that kid was trans and my partner was misgendering my kid, I would be murderous. And that would be a deal breaker for me, where I would be like, partner, that's my kid you're misgendering, and I don't actually care how hard a time you're having with it. That's on you. Like, it is not someone else's responsibility to curtail the fullness of their human journey to make you feel comfortable, get your shit together, or we're getting divorced. Like, I'm curious.
Yeah.
She's Victoria. We wish we had a better answer for you.
Yeah.
Well, and
we got something out of all of that.
I feel like as we've kind of circled around it, it's not Victoria's job to educate mom. It's not Victoria's job to tell mom how to understand who she is or what her pronouns are or her partner's pronouns. But, you know, this is something this is a journey mom has to take. And it's up to Victoria to decide how present she wants to be in that journey as mom takes it.
I agree. She needs to be the one to take responsibility for what her boundaries are. And to stick to those, which is hard.
I would say to Victoria to sit down with mom and say, we're going to have a conversation about this, just this, not anything else. Like, this is going to be the subject. Here's where I am. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. And these are the things that you need to figure out, whether you want to support me, whether you don't. Like, I cannot go, because clearly this can't go on.
Yeah.
So I think, Victoria, you need to, put your foot down and say, this is where it stops. So either you support me fully, or we'll have to renegotiate our relationship.
And not accept answers just like, I'll do better.
Exactly.
I'm going to try. Like, we need like concrete action plan. This is where our 3-step Virgo plan comes into place on mom's side of things.
We're all Virgos.
That's true. That's really true. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe mom would react well to that, because maybe, in a very super kind, looking at the whole situation, probably overly kind and naive, is perhaps mom is floundering. Perhaps mom is really floundering.
Yeah.
So strict guidelines might be a way to help.
Yeah. And being explicit about how it hurts too.
Extremely hopeful. But yeah.
I agree with you that like adding the feeling part might be, obviously we said there was no magic missing key here to unlock this, but I think like my experience with folks who are going through something where their parents are not supportive is that after a while you shut down the feelings part because it's too painful to be that vulnerable to someone who's harming you. And I wonder if, I think it would be so hard and like do as I say, not as I do, because I fail at this all the time. Like, to say to your mom, we've talked about this before, like I've told you what I want every single time I'm with you and you do the opposite of what I've asked you to do, it makes me feel like you don't love me, like you don't care about me, like your ideas about who I am as a person are more important than who I actually am. And that feels like absolute shit. And every time I talk to you, I get off the phone or I get in the car and I leave and I cry because my mom doesn't respect my humanity as a person. That's how you make me feel. Is that how you mean to make me feel? Because if it's not, there's like a set of actions that you need to take, because that is how I feel every time I talk to you. And if that doesn't get your mom, nothing will that you can do, I don't think.
Yeah.
God. Victoria, another hug. Another group
group hug.
hug. And we love you. This episode of Dear Romance Writer is brought to you by Lone Wolf by Diana Palmer, Rebecca Zanetti, and Kate Pierce from Kensington. It's a 3-in-1 book with stories about solitary heroes who are about to meet their perfect partners from a trio of New York Times best-selling authors. In Colorado Cowboy by Diana Palmer, Esther Maris is fleeing her mother's killer and ends up in a rugged stranger's cabin. As Esther heals, she realizes how much danger she's brought to his door and how far he'll go to protect her. In The Lone Wolf on Her Doorstep by Kate Pierce, Beth Baker senses her grumpy summer tenant must be in trouble when his pet wolf shows up at her door demanding she follow. Connor O'Neill, solitary and stubborn, doesn't want Beth's help, but only he can show her how to trust again. In Rescue, Cowboy Style, by Rebecca Zanetti, Trent Logan has his ranch, his friends, and his wolf, and that's more than enough, until a shivering city girl runs into the cattle club to escape a Wyoming storm. Her eyes hold a world of secrets, and he'll have to face the demons of his own past in order to save them both. You can find Lone Wolf by Diana Palmer, Rebecca Zanetti, and Kate Pierce wherever books are sold. Find out more at kensingtonbooks.com. Well, continuing in our mother stories, I guess will be our
something completely different.
Yes, and our transition out of there. There was a story that was on, I think, all of our social media loops lately.
Yeah.
About a woman discovering that her son's bride is her long lost daughter.
But
so
wait,
we just wanted to share this and chat a little bit about this because this is really interesting. So I'm just taking a little snippet out of Yahoo News. You can definitely find it all over the place.
We'll put the link on our website.
Yes.
Or whatever.
Yes, absolutely, in the show notes. So what we've got is basically a woman in Eastern China had the shock of her life when she found out that her son was marrying her long lost daughter. The reunion occurred right at the would-be spouse's wedding. The shocking discovery was made after the woman noticed a birthmark on the bride's hand, which looked strikingly similar to that of her long-lost child. Determined to uncover the truth, the woman mustered the courage to ask the bride's parents whether she was adopted. After explaining her story and the identical birthmark, the bride's parents eventually confirmed that their child had been adopted. Details were quickly ironed out, and the bride confirmed that she was indeed the woman's long-lost biological daughter. It turns out she went missing as a child and was picked up by her adoptive parents on the roadside some 20 years ago. The wedding could have been called off at this point, but the woman also revealed that her son, her now daughter's groom, was also adopted. The wedding proceeded as planned, but the shocking twist is one detour their guests will never forget.
If you submitted this as a script or a manuscript, They'd be like, yeah, go back to the fanfic that you were working on before.
Yeah,
It's
dial
like,
it
this is
down.
Never
just-
happen.
Dial it down, baby. Dial it down. Yeah, I get told all the time that I'm too soap opera. So
Was one of
this
those
was like my
articles-
jam. I love this.
Right, it's one of those articles you skim the first few lines, like, oh man, that's amazing. And then for some reason, I kept reading. And I was like, and then I just went on like, oh my gosh, you are not going to believe what happens at the end of this thing. Like, it's just, wow.
Well, and can we just talk about the fact that this happens like on the day
At the
of
wedding.
Oh,
At
yeah.
the wedding.
I'm just like,
Because the guests
well,
are like,
there you go.
I'm doing tennis heads here. Sorry for the podcast people. I'm just like watching a tennis match go back and forth. Like, what? Wait, what? And I want to see the birthmark, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
how
Yeah, it's got to be
recognizable.
super unique.
Yeah.
But so this led to a conversation on our group chat about sort of like the ways in which families sort of have secrets.
Mhm.
You know, and how, you know, sometimes it's hard to keep those family secrets. They always have a tendency, you know, to come out, which
Maybe
was
not
kind
so
of interesting
dramatically.
with this.
But
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you've got a twisted family tree, you are definitely not alone in this world.
you pull this up, be like, well, at least it wasn't like that wedding
Yeah.
in China in 2021.
I just keep thinking too, like that's, you know, if you're thinking about like being the bride in a wedding, like you're like, oh, I want people to remember my dress. I want people to talk about the food and
They're
the
never
band and
talking
everything.
about
I'm
that
like,
stuff.
nobody is ever going to remember your wedding as anything but the day where you realized you were marrying your step brother, adopted brother. I'm not even
Not
really
even-
sure like
yeah.
what their relationship. Well, they're married now, so husband and wife. There you go.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it took for them to all work this out. Because like
Ooh,
I don't
that's a
like
really good
our
point.
so I've been to some weddings, you know, that are like an hour, and then I've been
Mhm.
to a wedding that lasted 12 hours. Was this like a long day planned already, and they were just I'm sorry, but they were just like, yeah, we're here anyway, let's just hang out? Or was it like, here, the ceremony's in 15 minutes, but all this stuff happens and people are just waiting around to find out what goes on? Like, how did this, I would really love to see like how this played out. But imagine being the mother and the daughter is like a bride, you know.
Yeah.
Your wedding day, you're totally focused on like, do I have something in my teeth? Is my dress, you know, somebody gonna step on it? Like that whole thing. And then there's this woman who keeps looking at you and like looking at your hand
And it's your
stuff.
future mother.
And it's your future mother-in-law, and you're like, oh
giving
man,
you the judgy look.
I thought she
Yeah.
already passed, you know, I thought she already gave me her blessing. Why is she looking at me like this? Like, and how did she not realize this? That they hadn't met before? Like, how did this is, there's so much going on.
There are layers upon layers to this. But, you know,
Yeah.
and the other thing to think about too is I wonder, okay, and this is probably just me and my active imagination, but like if you do the 23andMe DNA thing, right? You get like a little you know, email listing, or you can check in whenever you have relatives
Mhm.
that come in,
I've
right?
heard about that. That just freaks me out.
Yes. And I am the person that is constantly waiting for the one that says, you have a brother or you have a sister. I'm sorry, Dad. But that is constantly my assumption. So I am always waiting for that. So I kind of wonder how many of these type of stories there are out there now that we don't hear about
Mhm.
because of the DNA things that happen, or there have been the stories about the families that have been found because like there's one sperm donor who ended up,
yeah.
because that happened recently too. And like we talked about the fact that, you know, when in the olden days, you know, our parents' generation, that, you know, unplanned pregnancies could end up with adoption a lot of times. And if that adoption was local, then you never knew. So I don't know. I think all of these twisty little family stories are interesting and really kind of lean us back towards the importance of communication, which Roan is always like hammering home, going, "Just be honest."
Yes.
Just love that. That is like the Roan quote. Just be honest. Just say what you're thinking.
Well, there was stuff in the article about like whether or not the daughter was a victim of child trafficking.
Yeah.
They said that they found her by the side of the road, which maybe.
Yeah.
But imagine being a woman who carried the pain of losing your daughter either through kidnapping or just,
Yeah.
loss or whatever. And then like, that's just,
To find her again.
and then
I mean,
find her
that's
again after like, because some women just push
Decades.
it all down. Like some people just
Mhm.
push all the pain and all the loss and stuff down, and then to have it like slap you in the face like that, like, oh, that must have been quite a day.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, what I
Incredible.
kept wondering was, would the mother have stirred this all up if her son had not been adopted?
Right.
Like, if it had been her
Ooh.
biological
Yeah.
son, would she? I mean, because like, okay, it's all about what is the construction of family, right? And one of the things that gets talked about
There are
so
genetics in there too.
Yeah.
but like, what I think gets talked about so much is like, what makes it, what is the incest taboo? Like, the incest
Right.
taboo is not a genetic thing. It's about like being with someone who was raised in the social role of a
Mhm.
sibling, right, or cousin or whatever it is. But like, the idea that family is one category and romance and sex are another category. And in this
Mhm.
instance, like, even if they were biologically related, which people have their own thoughts on this, like, those two people never knew each other. So like, they're not siblings culturally.
Right,
They're
right,
not
right.
siblings, like, and so I think it really depends. Like, for some people, they're like, oh my God, they share genetic material. They are 100% siblings, and that's horrible. Other people are like, they may as well be strangers. Their genetics don't have anything to do with how they were.
I am firmly in the genetics camp, and I will stay there,
See,
and I
and-
will live there, and I will build my big home. All
And
right, no
I-
brothers and sisters. Sorry.
I feel like that would have been something I would have said a few years ago, but I think I'm actually more in the other camp at this point because I've seen enough TV shows and movies where we find this couple and they're so in love and they got married and oh, it's the perfect life, only to reveal that, you're long lost siblings. But they were never raised together as siblings. They don't have that familial bond. And so
Well,
I
that
don't
could be
know.
the case, but that doesn't change the fact that you can have so many genetic problems with that. With mixing
do you
the
have to
same,
have children?
like winding your thing. You know what? To me, that is a taboo too far.
I mean, there has been research. One of the things I feel like that is the thing that people often bring up, and definitely like it's more likely with siblings, I guess, if kids are something you're going to have. But I actually Googled it right before this because I wanted to know the statistic.
I
And
love you.
well, because I was like reading this letter and I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to come on and be the one who's like, if you weren't raised as siblings, I just don't think it matters.
Nah,
And
I'm with you.
like, yeah, or if all three of you were going to be like, what the fuck's wrong with you? So I Googled it just for
What the fuck is wrong with you?
And apparently, in the case of first cousins, I think the statistic did not deal with siblings because I think there are very many fewer sibling couples that like admit that they're siblings or whatever.
Right.
But apparently, the increase in any kind of genetic issues is under 4%.
I mean,
It's
we
very
have royal families all over the world that are
That is
Right.
true.
very, very
I
closely.
think there's a difference between first cousins and people who are genetically your siblings.
But I think it only comes up when we think about them procreating and having children together, and that these children will have.
I don't know, and maybe it's because I just watched Crimson Peak last night. By the way, excellent movie, I love it to death. But spoiler
You and
alert,
everyone else, apparently. I said you and everyone
spoiler
else.
alert, that is one of the big twists at the end. So yeah, I mean,
But what
I don't
happens
know,
in
for
the case
me
of
that I also have to say I love how we have gone from this weird ass wedding in China to debating whether or not brothers and sisters can get together.
Because it goes. I'm with Roan in that when I read it before I got to the part of the article that said, and it was revealed that her son was also adopted, my first thought was, okay, we have the reveal of she has two children who are about to get married. What do you do in that case if they are related? Do you call off the wedding then and there when these people are so in love and they've only ever known each other as romantic partners? Because that's for me, and I know that's not the case. I know we're playing like a what if kind of situation, but that was where my mind went, was what if they were related? Like, were they still going to get married? Was everybody going to be okay with it? Like, oh.
Then you're talking about legality, because in a lot of
Yeah.
places it's illegal.
Yeah.
So was there someone there to verify that they weren't like actual, you know what I mean? Like there's
That's true.
like like how long was this wedding? Did it go on all week? Did they have to get like blood tests? Like what this is yeah.
I
And
like
societal things.
Like, is this a Babysitters Club super special where they're like at the ski lodge for a whole weekend, long enough for
Right.
Yeah, like
Oh my
wow.
goodness. Wow.
But they're not related, so
And also societal, like, you know, are you in a conservative society where any sort of hint of something like that is like, no, this must, you know, this obviously not, because everyone there accepted that this was a thing that was going to happen, apparently, and it happened.
Oh my goodness. You know what? This went a place that I think was unexpected, which is always fun. And we're actually recording in the morning for once, folks. Usually we do this in the late afternoon. So we're most assuredly, well, I can say I am most assuredly sober. So
don't speak for the
Let me
group,
put my flask
Avery.
away.
all right, yeah. I mean, it was a double espresso. I'm right here.
Before we get off of this topic, though, I have to say, you mentioned 23andMe, and I don't know if you remember when they first started running ads, they brought in like a group of people from different parts of Europe and had them take the test. And there's two things. One guy who was British, who was like insisted he was 100% English, and it turned out he had something else going on, and he was upset. He was so upset. But then there were cousins that met through the DNA test that they didn't. One was in like Israel or something, and one was in South Africa or something like that, and they were like, oh my gosh, like they were related, and
Which is cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
It was really interesting. I did it, not surprisingly, like 99.9% Scottish, Irish, and English. So yeah, pasty are my people. So yeah, not a surprise. And my husband, whose family pretty much is like 100% Irish on one side and 100% Italian on the other side. Oh my goodness. His mix was a lot varied, which is not surprising because Italians and, you know, your trade routes and all of that, everything. So that was really interesting. So his was very much mixed. And then I had an uncle who insisted he was 100% Irish, and heartbroken is the end of that story. It's fun, and now if I ever have a relative who's a serial killer, they will get caught that way. So I'm okay with that.
Yes. That's a whole other conversation that I would be more than willing to have with anybody.
We'll have to have
Oh my God. What is the name of the book? What is the name of the book that Patton Oswalt's wife did? I'll be there in the dark. What is it?
Because they did like a documentary special that was the same.
Oh wait, Roan, you're muted. I didn't hear what you said. Sorry. I'll be gone in the dark. Is that what it is? That book is phenomenal, number one. Yeah. And the documentary was really good too that they did on HBO. But yeah, that's how they caught him.
I am super interested in what I'm kind of thinking of as like the biological side of this conversation and the cultural side of this conversation, just to emphasize a little, because the talking about the 23andMe, all those DNA tests, what seems super interesting to me is the way that family members, even if it's like distant cousins or close cousins or whatever it is, they find out that they have this shared genetic material, and suddenly they're like, I found a new member of my family, and that's meaningful, right? So it's like all that is required for meaning to be made is this like genetic connection, even if you've never met. And then there's on the other side, there's like, what does it mean to be close with someone? It means shared experience. It means being raised in certain roles in relationship to one another, etc. And these seem opposed in some way, but I feel like most of us have some kind of combination of both. Like we might I definitely believe that culture is far more important than biology.
I do too.
Yeah.
If I were to find out that I had a random cousin and it was a human being I'd never met, I wouldn't care at all. I wouldn't assume that person was in any way similar to me or connected to me just because we shared DNA. But I do know that like, if I were to take one of those DNA tests and find that I had like a sibling, I would be really curious because it fits somewhere in between. I guess I'm kind of
Yeah.
like there's like no necessity that they would be similar or interesting to me, but they could be because my sister is like my best friend socially,
Yeah.
and I know that we have these things that are really similar. So I feel like most of us are somewhere in between, but it is interesting to like talk about both sides. Like you can believe.
But then they also, you know, I lean towards the cultural as well, but then you'll see like National Geographic several years ago had like a whole cover story on twins that were separated.
I was just scared to talk about that. Yeah.
And then there's a documentary that's saved on my Hulu that I still haven't watched about triplets that were separated.
Yeah.
And the similarities between what they do, what they wear,
one of the twins,
how they act, even being raised in different
places. One of the twins, they were brothers. They met at some random place. Like they would just walk, and they were wearing like the same clothes, and they were like, it was like that Spider-Man gif where they're like pointing at each other. Like, and they ended up doing a documentary on them and stuff. Yeah, like it's I was just thinking the same thing.
I think it's fascinating. And I think probably, you know, there's the truth of things, like, and a lot of stuff is somewhere in the middle, you know, but it's just fascinating. I love that stuff.
This documentary because I want to watch it.
I'll find it and I'll bring it up during our recommendations section. I'll find it on my Hulu real quick.
Three Identical Strangers.
Is that what it's called?
Strangers?
The one about the triplets who like are adopted to different families.
It's got us.
I watch a lot of documentaries and true crime.
Oh God. Murder shows, they are my happy
balances out all the romance reading I do.
It's wild how people think that people who write and or read romance are like not interested in things like gruesome serial killer.
Ridiculous.
Well, you know what? My theory on that is that it's about control. Right? With romance, romance is one guarantee is a happily ever after or happy for now. Right? So you are in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
And you feel safe. And I think with true crime or that type of thing, again, for the most part, when they get to actually doing the documentaries about stuff, it's solved. So again, you're seeing the scariest thing that could happen. And you're and you're seeing it to the end where, you know, hopefully somebody gets captured. So that's my theory on it. Oh, and maybe that's just me.
No, that's a great. I actually listened to a podcast that was all about why are we so attracted to stories about serial killers, and that was one of the main points, was that we watch these stories as sort of like a way to, you know, first of all, understand how people's minds work or try to understand, but also to think, okay, if I can understand how this happened to someone, I can avoid it happening to me. Like
or
this
look for the signs in someone.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
and so I know for me, that's what I find fascinating about it is I'm like, oh my God, that could have been me. Like, okay, oh gosh, what do I do? And so I think there is an element of control there for sure.
Do you guys ever like get to the end of your day and wonder what the closest was that you came to dying during the day?
Well, no, but now I'm going to. Thanks, Roan.
Yes, I have had those days. Actually, Rowan, we haven't even gotten to recommendations yet, but I have one for you because I saw an ad for a serial killer adult coloring book. And I was like, oh my gosh, I should totally get this for Rowan. This is so cool. It was just like the most morbid, gleeful thing that I've ever seen.
Sometimes you just want to chill out and let go of the day by coloring in some serial killers.
Yeah.
From Ted Bundy.
Yikes.
Oh my goodness. Well, I took in college, sorry, this conversation has gone so many different places. But in college, I took I was a psych minor, shocker. And every girl who's messed up in the head is either a psych minor or major. That's just a guarantee. Sorry, then you're the exception that proves the rule. But so I took a serial killers class, and it was one of the twice a week ones. So it was an hour and a half.
How
and
to be a serial killer 101? What was this?
Yeah. Well, it it was actually really interesting. We read this one book that messed me up in the head so hard, and it wasn't even about a serial killer. It was called Resilience, and it was about it was actually about split personality. I don't remember what they technically call that now. Sorry, it's been a really long time since I was in college. And but anyways, so the class ended at 10:30 at night, and I had an overnight shift. I was a CSA during college. So I worked as overnight shift at homes for folks with mental handicaps, mentally handicapped adults that were in independent living situations. So I went straight from that class to my overnight shift at this farmhouse on the edge of this little teeny tiny Missouri town. I had never any problem staying awake on Tuesdays and Thursday nights for that shift ever. So yeah, so that was really fun.
What I don't understand is what professor agreed to teach a class from 8:30 to 10:30 p.m.
This one, and there's probably a reason. No, actually, he was great. He was great, but it was a very fascinating class. It was really, really super interesting. I'll never forget it. And I forgot most of, I've tried to block out everything except for like biology that I took like 3 times. So yeah.
I love classes like that really stick with you. Those are the
Yeah.
best.
They really are.
Especially when they have nothing to do with your major. You just like take some elective and it's just like, that's the one that I remember.
That's the one I remember all the weird facts from. Yeah. Either that or it was the class that you had with the teacher that slept with everybody. So yeah.
I didn't have that class, at least that I know of.
Oh my God. That's a whole different episode. We can
that is. That's like boundary problems.
Teacher-student boundaries.
Yikes.
Oh, all right. Well, Kelly, we have loved having you on. Y'all, Kelly Reynolds is with Boobies and Noobies podcast. You should definitely give it a listen. Kelly, please tell everybody where they can find you and follow you and do all of the friendly, non-serial killery stocky things.
I just wanted to say it. Boobies and Noobies.
Yeah, give it a whirl. Just right off the tongue.
Like great mouthfeel.
Oh my God. Guys, 12-year-old sense of humor. Stop talking about tongues and mouthfeel.
First thing in the morning, too, that this is like where our brains would be at. But no, I'm boobiesandnoobies.com. You can listen to all the past episodes there. I put all of our show notes there. We're streaming on wherever you listen to podcasts, and I'm on social media at Boobies Podcast. So that's where you can find me and come chat with me and listen to all the goods. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being on. We absolutely loved having you. And I will give a shout out because both of us are all of us are part of the Frolic Podcast Network.
Hooray!
Yes.
So we are like podcast siblings.
Yes.
So for me, we cannot get married. Roan's making, I don't even know how to describe it, like kissing finger motions.
Come together, finger movements.
Oh my God. Y'all, we will be
This
right
is like
back
a late
with
night podcast at first thing in the morning.
We will be right back with our Spotify playlist, our recipe, our recommendations for the week. So thank you guys so much. We will be right back. Thank you, Kelly, for coming.
Thanks,
Thank
Kelly.
you.
Cool. So we're going to talk music for a second. This week's playlist is just kind of all over the place, but we were talking a lot about mothers and mother's love and mother's acceptance and mommy issues. So I have some stuff from the Cinematic Orchestra. I've got Peter Gabriel, Fink, SYML, Beck. But yeah, I think I hit the nail on the head with this one. So let me know what you think in the comments. Yay.
Well, so this week's recipe is not actually inspired by our letters, but is inspired by a Twitter exchange that I had with fellow romance writer Kelly Jensen, who mentioned making focaccia. So I've never made focaccia, but I really do enjoy eating it. And a couple weeks ago, right? A couple weeks ago, I had this like okay, at the beginning of the pandemic, you remember when there was the time when we were just ordering like large cans of food because we
Mhm.
didn't know what was going to be happening? I ended up with a large can of beets, like a tin of beets the size of a head. And once you open something like that, you gotta use it up pretty quickly. And so I was like putting beets and everything, and I like beets a lot, so I wasn't sad about that. But I saw this recipe for a beet focaccia where you use the beet juice and it tints it this beautiful pink.
Ooh.
So I decided that I would make it. The dough looked beautiful, but it was one of those like rise it over the at night, overnight is the word that the kids use to describe that period of time. And take it out the next morning. So I took mine out the next morning and the dough had not risen and it did not look good. And I baked it anyway and it didn't rise. It was garbage. It was pink, which was nice, but it was terrible. So I was really not pleased, especially because I had deeply wanted to eat beet focaccia. So when Kelly said something about making focaccia on Twitter yesterday, I was like, oh, so please send me a recipe because I really want to try this. So she sent me a recipe and I made it immediately and it's delicious and it rose and it's not pink, but like I feel like I could put beet juice in it and it would be fine. So it's my first ever foray into focaccia and has really erased the beet mishap of 2021. But it's a great like plain base dough. And so what I will now do now that I know it works is of course add in all the flavoring.
Oh yeah. All the
My
good stuff.
garden is like exploding right now because of all the rain we've been having. So I want to make some like mixed herbs, like different ones with different herbs. And also there's this trend on Instagram that you've probably seen of people doing like focaccia painting, where it's like you have the focaccia as your canvas and then you cut vegetables into little pieces and you
that is so you.
like flowers or
wow. I love this. Yeah, my Instagram's all books and dogs. So yeah.
Well, it's a niche maybe, but it looks very 70s kind of wallpaper. Like
oh cool.
Oh, I love that.
But I totally want to make one, and I have this fantasy that maybe I could make book cover focaccia.
Ooh.
I bet
it
you
turns
could.
out like your cakes, like your
yeah, no kidding, and the cookies and stuff. Yeah, I have belief. I believe in you.
Thank you, Kelly Johnson, for the base recipe. I will post it, and as I try new variations, I'll post some pictures.
Didn't you get like a huge bag of flour? I remember something about you ordering what you thought was a smaller bag of flour, and it was really like a big bag of flour.
Oh, I knew how I was ordering. I just thought that it would like last me through the whole pandemic, and then a month later, and the 25 pounds were gone. More recently, though, my sister and I split like a bulk grocery order from some farm that she found that did things like this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like an very official thing. It was just like place your order here. And so I asked for another 25-pound bag of all-purpose flour, and my sister was doing the order. And I don't know if she put it in wrong or if the people read it wrong, but what came was a bag of whole wheat bread flour, 25 pounds.
Oh.
Which I like whole wheat all-purpose flour. I like bread flour. Whole wheat bread, that's like a particular thing.
That is a specific.
So that's what I've been using for a while, and it actually has turned out great. So
yeah,
it's
cool.
Really whole wheat bread flour.
So you're just having healthy flour. Healthy flour. Sure. Well, I am not a baker, as we all know. So we are moving on to recommendation side of things, and I have a new addiction, and so I am sharing that with y'all. For anybody else who does not have the high-hand coordination, the eye-hand coordination, or the ability to not stab themselves in the eyeballs when they do fake eyelashes, but once fake eyelashes, I moved from doing the metallic ones, the magnetic ones, to the Lashify thing, where you actually are putting them on your lashes, and they are individual sets, and they are more expensive. I'm not gonna lie, but they also, I put them on like a Monday, and they last until Saturday, and that's because I take them off and then just let my like eyelashes have Sunday. Everybody deserves a day of rest. I don't know. I don't think you technically have to. I'm just weird. But it took a couple of tries to figure out what sort of system to do, and there are a million YouTube videos of people showing you exactly how to put these on in different techniques. But if you like fake eyelashes, then this is for you. It's pretty awesome. You could just buy like a certain kind, or you can do like a little subscription box of them. Again, another problem of mine. So this like crossed so many like little boundaries for me. It was
They're like,
perfect.
what can we make that Avery will buy?
Oh my God, put it in a box and mail it to me. I am like an 8-year-old when it comes to mail. Like, I know when the mail truck is here before the dogs do. It's not a lie.
Can I ask a follow-up question about the eyelashes, not about you being like a dog? Can you put makeup on while you're wearing them and wash it off and still use them?
Yes. So here's the thing. I will tell you, I am also a lover of eyeliner. My eyeliner usage has gone down significantly because of that. But it also, the eyelashes, like I'm wearing them right now for those of you who are watching. These are the super short
No, I'm
ones.
looking like.
I know.
There you go. These are the really short ones. But I think that they do such a good job of defining, and because they're so much thicker and darker, that I don't use as much of the eyeliner, but you can still do it. The big thing with washing your face at night is to use more of like a makeup eraser than to splash your face with water and go like that. One of the good side benefits, and oh, by the way, I wear contacts and they have not caused problems with that. So that's a big thing. But I also touch my eyes constantly. So they have actually made me more conscious of that. So I don't do it as often. So there's, my ophthalmologist is going to be thrilled. But yeah, so they are, I don't know. I really like them. If you are a fake eyelashes person, this is really good. And they've got several different kinds you can do.
I'm super curious. I've never worn fake lashes in my life, but I've always been really curious about them. And now that I've learned that it's actually like a benefit to not washing your face, like not washing your face with water is a benefit. It's like you've given me something to justify not washing my face.
Well, no, you should still wash your face. Healthy skin is important, honey. You just don't use harsh chemicals, and you get your little makeup eraser cloth wet, and then you do that. But yeah, so that has been my new
Burst her bubble.
Yeah. Sorry, wash your face. But I won't say girl wash your face. I'll just say wash your face. There you go. All right. So that's mine. What are you guys recommending this week? Not eyelashes.
No, I just started because I haven't had a lot of time to read lately, but I just started Honey Girl from Morgan Rogers.
That cover.
I'm showing the cover.
It's so pretty.
It's so pretty. And this is her debut, which again, I hate her because it's so good so far. Like people with these debut novels that are just like knocking it out of the park the first time out. I'm like, really? But no, it's really good. It actually reminds me a little bit. The premise is like one of my favorite tropes, the wake up married in Vegas trope. I love when it can be twisted around. It reminds me a little bit of Sweet Filthy Boy from Christina Lauren. This is sort of that tone right away. And I'm not that far into it, so but it's getting great reviews, and she's just so much fun. I follow her on Twitter, and she's got such a great personality, and it shows in her writing. So yeah, Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I'll follow up and let you know, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna love it because it's so far really good.
Yay!
Awesome. My rec this week, I was just thinking back to make sure that I haven't actually recommended it already, and I think I've just talked about it, is the podcast Why Are Dads? Do either of you listen to this?
No.
Okay, so the podcast You're Wrong About is one of my favorite podcasts, and it is exactly what it sounds like, which is two super smart people taking you through sort of like well-known events in history or culture and debunking all the things that the official story has wrong. So one of the podcasters named Sarah is just delightful, like the most delightful person. Why Are Dads is her spin-off, or not spin-off, but like another podcast of hers So it's two podcasters who both love movies and both have difficult relationships with their fathers, talking about dadness, basically like cultural and social and familial constructions of dadness and the way that different popular movies demonstrate different kinds of dads. And so it's called Why Are Dads for that reason, but it's really like a movie analysis podcast. Both Sarah and Alex, the other podcaster, are super smart in talking about movies, and they have great guests on who they'll have pick a movie. So they just had someone on in the most recent episode who has a book coming out, I think, called We're Not Broken, about folks with autism, and he himself has autism and is like a rights advocate. And they did Rain Man. Mm-hmm. And it was a really, really interesting, that's just the most recent one, but it was a really interesting breakdown of like cultural conversations around like parenthood and autism in the movie, the idea of a father and like the father in your family, or when is the father the state, like when you go into an assisted living facility, etc., and like what autism itself reveals about cultural constructions of dadness. And although I'm making it sound very serious, especially Sarah Marshall is fucking hysterical. She's so funny, and the podcast is by turns very smart, very poignant, and very, very funny.
Oh,
cool.
I like that.
You have to check it out.
Yeah. Awesome.
Excellent.
Well, you have spent another episode with your romance writer, and where we have given questionable advice, talked about whether or not brothers and sisters should bang it out, and given you our recommendations. We're totally trustworthy. So thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe everywhere. Send in your anonymous letters from our website, and be sure to check out our Patreon.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.